Hi people, it's me again, Morino Ravenberg. A couple of days ago, I think either yesterday or the day before, you name it, I released a video in which I denoted my own personal evolution. Hold on, give me a second. I feel like wearing one of my fedoras again. So yeah, I'm gonna wear my beautiful fedora. The red one this time. Yeah. And I'm going to discuss a different aspect of also a very important aspect of my own occult evolution, which is the financial bit. I don't think this video is going to be a long one because there's not a lot to say. When I first started out, okay, I'm not going to discuss a specific spirit. My vice patron and the person that handles money for me, my financial manager is, and my vice patron, my beloved vice lord is the Archangel Sandalphon. That's all that needs to be said. Okay, I've worked with spirits in the past for wealth, etc., you name it. But I want to focus specifically on just the general overview of things. Just a general overview of things. Other spirits that I can mention briefly that also helped me was Clonek and so on. But primarily my vice lord, my beloved vice lord Sandalphon has helped me. But yeah, in any case, that is it. I'm just going to discuss things in general. When I started first, before the occult, shortly before I became an occultist, I lived in a one-bedroom apartment in honestly a crummy apartment complex, an apartment building in a back alley neighborhood that is filled with, for the most part, filled with unpleasant entities. The owner of the apartment complex is a very friendly man, no complaints about him, you name it. I met one or two friendly people, my cab driver being one of them, the person that I'm used to calling whenever I need, to be driven somewhere in general, you name it. But he still lives at that one-bedroom apartment complex, by the way. I'm of course not going to call him by name. That would be inappropriate as well as discretion. I don't call people by names. In any case, I lived in a one-bedroom apartment shortly before I became an occultist. This is just to give you a financial overview. This is what the place looked like, or this is what it looks like. And let's just say it's decent at best. But yeah, honestly, it was a crummy one-bedroom apartment. I paid in rent, including internet usage, approximately $100 American dollars. And just to compare it to the living standard and the cost of living in my country of residence, that is, the average person here makes between $200 and $300 a day. $200 and $300 a month. Yeah, $300 a month at most. Keep in mind, this is at most, okay? And even then, in general, this is with overwork. We're talking about the average person which has a mundane job. Gas station attendant, security guard, administrative employee, desk clerk, whatever mundane job that requires a basic level of education as well as a basic level of work experience. So yeah, that's the average income, $200, $300 at most. And I paid $100 in rent. This was 2010. Okay, this aligns with the other video, of course, the way I looked pretty much, but that one was specifically about my own personal development spiritually and physically as a consequence of the spiritual. This is solely about looking at my financial progress and looking at the financial aspect of my own occult evolution. Yeah, so yeah, I lived in that dump. Again, no offense to the place itself, but I lived in that dump. And I spent the longest of my time there while getting my act together. I lived there from 2010 approximately to 2017. So yeah, seven really long years. That's literally like multiple lifetimes to me, because I underwent so many changes there. In any case, that is it. I made, back then I still worked mundane jobs. I worked, first off, I worked at a security company as a control room operator, basically a dispatcher. It's like a 911 dispatcher. I made how much? I made like $150 a month. Yeah, you heard that right. So I was only left with $50 to cover monthly expenses. After that, I moved on to a better company, which paid more, and I made approximately $200. Let's just say my starting salary was $250. Let's just leave it at $250. And I was doing better, of course, but after that, due to trouble in the company, I got demoted, and my income was like $200. Okay. And after that, I quit the company. I went to work at a call center, all the while still living there, and I made the same amount of money, $200. With overtime, it was $250, $300 even at most. But keep in mind, this was with ridiculous levels of overwork. You had to work yourself to the bone. My average working hours were between 8 and 12 hours a day, and I work pretty much, let's just say 15 to 20 days out of the month. When I worked 12 hours a day, it was in most cases it was like 15, 17 days a month. After that, this is around the same time that I found myself around 2016. It was around that time. I worked as a dating site. That's when life started to pick up in every aspect due to me obtaining results via the occult. It was first with Clowneck, and after that with my Vice Lord, Sandalphon, which is still the case up to this day with Sandalphon. He's still and forever my vice patron, you name it. He's my second in command, blah, 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 blah. I made... I worked as a dating site moderator. That's basically... You need to pretend that you're, for example, a woman, and you need to lure guys with a fake profile on dating websites. The only it borders on fraud, I know. The only thing that separates it from being fraud is the fact that they have these dating websites have a clause in their TOS, their terms of services, which indicates that their terms of service, which indicates that they are not allowed to, which indicates that they're allowed to basically host fictional profiles on their website, which whom meeting up is not possible because the person doesn't exist in reality. It's a fictional profile. In any case, it simply involves you trying to not scam these guys, but metaphorically speaking, scam them for all their worth. I also did not like I didn't like the nature of the job, but I did like every other aspect of it. Clowneck got me the job, and it was pretty much the best job locally that could be offered to me, that met my standards. I made, I think, at least twice as much. It was like a couple of €100 first. It was, let's just say, converted into dollars, it was like $300, and at a certain moment it was $450, you name it. I was a hard worker, okay, but I didn't have to work that hard. The job simply involved me working from home. All you need is a computer or any other device, and you need an internet connection, and that's it. And you can log in. They give you your username and password, and you can log in and then start working. And I basically worked strong. I worked sternly and intensely for how long? Let's just say 4 hours a day on average during peak hours when it was rush hour, when there was a lot of traffic on the site, because you get paid by the message, every message that you send. For example, 10 euro cents for every message. That's like $12 cents or $11 cents. And at most, I made $650 a month. That was my peak, absolute peak. I had never made so much money in my life. That's 3 times what the average person makes here. And yeah. But unfortunately, one of the drawbacks was working with the person that I worked with back then, which was Clowneck, is the instability. I couldn't hold down a job as a moderator for longer than 2 months. I kept getting redirected through forceful means, so getting fired, getting sacked and laid off by forcible means, and every 2 months or so. And eventually, after a year, I got stranded, and I found another moderator job that paid just enough to cover bills and expenses. I made like again the basic $200 a month was enough, only enough, not even 200, 150, only enough to cover expenses. And this was approximately 16, 17, and I started working with Sandalphon after really 2 or 3 days worth of deliberation. I stopped with Clonak and I worked with Sandalphon, and he's the one that he basically brought me back to working the moderator job, in which I worked so heavily, and I made that amount of money, and I made decent money for the first couple of months, I made decent money, no complaints. And after a while, he simply got me, he's the one that basically guided me towards offering my services as a magician for hire. And that's when real money really started flowing, because I started making money instead of in local currency, which is crap. I started making money in American dollars, and I started off slow. The cheap back then, the most expensive package on my website, and I also still worked on Fiverr marketplace, an online marketplace similar to Etsy and so on, and Amazon. I made $100 at most, I think. Yeah, my most expensive package was $100 per order. And things started going well because I made real money. I made like $400 a month, $500, $600, and it kept increasing steadily. And after a year in working with Sandalphon approximately, I reached an amount of $1,800 a month, and that's when I moved to this house in 2018. That was 2 years ago, and I stayed there for a year, and with ups and downs. And there was a brief interlude or a period in which I pretty much went bankrupt. I lost everything, and I had to start all over again from scratch, which almost sunk me into a deep depression. But my patrons, they really took care of me then, and they came through for me, especially my beloved Lord Samael. He really kept me together mentally, and I saw them talking to each other, as in saying that, hey, we need to really prevent him from breaking down, otherwise there's going to be big trouble. He needs to keep a cool head and everything. They laid out a game plan for me and everything. Sandalphon instructed me on what to do, etc., in order to get things back on track as much as possible. You name it. And that's when I came back really with a bang. I mean, I made so much money. My average income was like $6,000-$7,000 a month, and on top of that, I netted a one order that still to this day is the most amount of money that I've made in one hit, which was $25,000. I helped a customer sell his house, and Sandalphon helped him sell his house at as highest rate as possible, so get a good deal on it. And I told him, listen, the deal is that I get half. And I got $25,000, and it's safe to say that that was back in the time when I really lived things up. Man, I was living it up. For me, life, for a couple of 2 or 3 months straight, life was nothing but going out to expensive hotels and bars and restaurants and practically every place that you can imagine. It's like one huge fucking vacation for me. And afterwards, I was set to leave the country, and I was intending on leaving it permanently, but due to complications of an occult nature, things started backfiring and everything started collapsing gradually but surely. And because of that, I was unable to leave the country, and I was stuck here up to still present day, but which I don't mind, because in hindsight it was for the best. Nothing happens by coincidence. Everything happens for a reason after all. And And bottom line is that I wasn't ready to leave yet. I can see that in hindsight, but back then, all I wanted to do was leave, and I was just fed up with the situation when I couldn't leave. But yeah, in hindsight, no, I really was not ready. If I had left the country, I would have been stranded. I would have been stranded abroad. Okay. Eventually, I would have run out of money and resources, and I would have had a huge problem on my hands then. Honestly, I would have relegated myself more or less to some kind of migrant, which is the idea alone is detestable, gross. Yeah. In any case, after that, I went to live in this house. I managed to find this house, which by the way also belongs to the same owner that owns the apartment complex I lived in those 7 years that I mentioned in the beginning of this video. And I lived in this house for the entirety of, for approximately a year, the entirety of 2019. And I lived in it for a year and a half, roughly estimated, the entirety of 2019 and half of 2020. And in those times, I live streamed heavily, etc. Those are the things that I did. And for me, yeah, things were going well. I also had ups and downs. One of the biggest challenges that I've had is, which I'm currently heavily fixated on, is stability. My the financial aspect of my occult evolution has always been unstable. But that's simply due to the fact that it's a character trait of mine. I am a good upstarter, as in I'm a good instigator. I start things up strongly, but my biggest challenge and problem is personality-wise stability. To keep things going at a steady pace is pretty much my biggest challenge. But I'm already on that, so no issues. And yeah, I made the same amount of money, approximately $4,000 or $5,000 a month, and you name it. Okay, that house that I lived in last year was the most expensive to date, the most expensive house that I've lived in. Of course, the house was broad and so on, but it wasn't worth the money. Not in hindsight. The only reason I took that house is because I was really desperate and I couldn't find anything. The real estate market was such a mess back in that time, and I was already stuck in a hotel for a month, 2018 going on 2019, and I was really fed up. I was stuck in a hotel and I paid hefty. We're talking about $75 a day, and I think I spent over $2,500 staying in that hotel. All the while, of course, this doesn't include food and stuff like that, so you better believe I spent money like it literally like there were biscuits. I was throwing money around like they were biscuits. And yeah, that house is the most expensive house to date, honestly, that I think for. The house that I showed you guys in 2018, this house, again, just to remind you guys, I paid €300 a month for that one. That's like $350 or $360. The house that I lived in last year, so again, this one, for that house I paid, how much? The house 2019 I paid on a monthly basis, how much was it again? I paid approximately €500 or €600 a month for that house. Yeah, that's like $600 on average. Yeah, that's by date to date the most expensive house I stayed in. And like I said, in hindsight, it wasn't worth it. The benefit of the house is that it was broad, it had like 4 bedrooms, etc. And I was all alone in that house. I could easily accommodate at least two families in that house. And it also had a bedroom downstairs, etc., etc. But the drawback is that the house was in a bad neighborhood, as you can tell looking at the picture. And the house was only built halfway through, so the house was never refined. Certain things were never fully finalized construction wise, so yeah, that's what made the house somewhat of a dump. In any case, that was it. And around the middle of this year, 2020, I moved to my current house, if you want to see what my current house looks like, just wait until this video is over and you'll see it showing up at the end screen. So yeah, that's the house that I live in currently, and it is to date the best house that I've lived in. My rent on average is how much? 350 euros. That's like $380, roughly estimated, on a monthly basis. So yeah, that is my financial occult evolution, and as you can see for yourself, I don't mess around. I honestly make an absolute minimum of at least 10 times. The absolute minimum that I make is 10 times what the average person here makes. But my average is higher than that, of course, 15, 20 times. I make literally as much as 2 dozens of people put together here, roughly estimated. I make as much as 20 people here combined. So yeah, by local standards, I am ultra wealthy, and deservedly so, of course, with all the stuff that I have done and been through and how hard I've worked. Yeah, no issues. That's also why I can afford a lot of stuff, in my spare time and so on. And make no mistake, I'm still set on leaving. That's no question about that. But I don't want to talk too much about that. You guys the people following me will see for themselves once I've moved, because I'm going to publish it, and then you'll see for yourself where I've moved to, etc. I don't want to spoil anything, and I don't want to jinx anything. Not that I'm superstitious, me of all people, not superstitious, but I know for a fact that it's not a good idea to tell people about your goals in advance, okay? It increases the likelihood that your goal will fail, or accomplishing said goal. In any case, as you can see for yourself, that is my own personal financial evolution. I went from making pretty much minimum wage by local standards to making past 10-fold, 20-fold what the average person here makes. And that is it, pretty much. Those are the houses that I've stayed at, so those are the homes that I've had. And that's pretty much my life, as in I can afford ridiculously expensive stuff that even foreigners have noticed. Usually even people that come here, foreigners that are on vacation, can't afford the stuff that I can do. They can afford part of what I can, but they can't afford the same stuff that I can. And even people abroad have made these statements, so I don't have to say anything. And yeah, people locally, out of jealousy and vanity, they automatically expect the worst, and they think that I'm either a drug dealer or something like that. The tattoos obviously also scare them off somewhat, etc. But yeah. But yeah, they know. Some of them know better. And yeah, I also need to state that even local people have noticed that I'm world renowned as an occultist. And I've had even 1 or 2 local people say that they've seen me on YouTube, and that they have keep in mind, the local population is as dumb as nails. They don't even know what an occultist is. If it wasn't for me, they literally had no idea what an occultist is until I came along. So yeah, people are piquing me, to put it that way, local people even. They're too stupid and too ignorant to understand what an occultist is, but they have some vague idea, as in, he's a magician, as in he's a spirit worker, blah blah blah, he can curse and hex people and do all kinds of horrible shit. So yeah, in any case, I'm going to close off now. I'm going to close off by saying, for those of you that are wondering, some of you might be wondering, as in, why don't you just build your own house? Why don't you buy or have your own house constructed? End of story. Why don't you just buy property or just have property built? The reason I don't do so, because that would be easier in the long term, but that's just it. I don't intend on staying here in the long term. And especially with local prices, you better believe I don't like it. Okay, the real estate market is one of the many things that is wrong, in contrast to the country's living standard. I already said how much the average person makes. Make no mistake, if you want to buy a house here, it's going to cost you around, a good house, for example, with 2 bedrooms and so on. A house the likes of which I'm living now, with the yard and everything, is going to cost you close to $100,000, or $100,000, and even surpassing $100,000. Make no mistake about it. It's just offensive. Okay, can you imagine that a house that of $100,000 in a country where the average person makes $200-300? The average person here doesn't stand a chance of buying a house ever, under no circumstance. So yeah, for me, it's simply renting is the most practical and the wisest thing to do. I can't I can't. I'm really unwilling to build my own house or to buy an own house for reasons I mentioned. Even if I wanted to construct my own house, and if you went about it as cheaply as possible, it would still cost you. A house with a yard on it would cost you like what, $35,000, $40,000. And I'm not gonna build a house here only to leave and never come back. No, that's not gonna happen. Okay, it's just impractical. If a house costs $1,000, a couple of $1,000, which it's supposed to by local standards, according to the local, in keeping with the cost of living of the country, then yeah, I would. I would have a house built. But no, I'm not gonna build a house because it's a waste of not just the money. Okay, aside from the money, it's a ridiculous waste of time, effort, resources. If I intend on staying here for the rest of my life, then yeah, no contest. I would have my own house, either bought or built. I'd buy a house or build a house, you name it. But I'm not doing either of them because I don't intend on staying here. Neither am I buying a car. I can easily buy a car, honestly. A good car costs like $5,000, $6,000 here, close to $10,000. If I want an all-terrain vehicle, not an ATV, sorry, I mean a four-wheel drive car, an SUV, it would cost $25,000 and up. So yeah, I'm not going to do that either because, like I said, I don't intend on staying here. So buying a house and a car is completely useless to me. It's an absolute waste of time and money and everything else. So no, I'm not even thinking about it. Renting is the most practical of things, and whenever I want to go somewhere, not that I go to a lot of places anymore, I'm done. I've had as much fun as I can have here. I've lived it up. I have had more fun than 100 people together here, roughly estimated. So yeah. Right now I'm just biding my time, to be honest and to be fair. I am just going to, if I want to go somewhere, the one or two times that I go out of the house, it's or that I need to go out, it's just calling a cab, and the story, which is also cheaper and more practical in the long term. So yeah, that's all. Now you guys have seen my financial evolution, and see you guys later. Bye.